Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you're listening to this. That helps the podcast out. It's so much fun doing this. At some point, it's going to be better because I can be in person. It's even more fun in person, but it is a lot of fun. And this guest was no different. It was somebody I just met over the summer. He's a new football coach, and I got to learn all about where he started to now where he is, and he was perfect. He was so chronological, and I didn't even have to ask any questions about what happened now or what happened then. After that, it was perfect. We talked a lot about his family in the beginning, and then we talked all about football. So it was a great podcast. So again, if you know anyone that wants to come on the podcast, reach out to the nerdballpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out on all the social medias. Just search Nerdball Podcast. Twitter's the Nerdball Pod. Facebook page, the Nerdball Podcast. Instagram, same thing. Having a lot of fun doing this, so please keep reaching out. Don't forget about the YouTube page. Subscribe to that if you haven't yet. It's another way to actually see us talk as opposed to just listen to us. So if you like that kind of stuff, but that's all I got to say about this. It was another great episode, so I appreciate my guests for coming on, and I appreciate you all for listening.
This is Marc Gibson, and this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
All right, Marc, thanks for coming on my podcast today. How you doing?
I am excellent, Lorenzo. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. We met this year because you're new to our Perrysburg football staff. It is not really like strange to me, but I know it was a funny thing when you first joined because you've been a Maumee football coach for a long time. So
right.
Maybe it isn't as big a deal because they're not in our league anymore, so you don't have to deal with that. But I don't know. Would that have changed anything?
I don't think it would have, but it maybe would have given a little bit of attention in the classroom because over the last 4 years, I've coached middle school football at Maumee. And so even though I coached 8th graders last year, the 8th graders this year were obviously 7th grade football players last year. And I coached them in the group setting when we started the season. So I didn't coach them directly, but I think a lot of them were anticipating that I was coming back to coach them. And obviously I'll have some of those kids in my classroom this year. So I think that would have been a little odd to say that down the road, I might be facing them as a coach and a player. But the fact that the leagues are changing and most likely Maumee and Perrysburg will never play in football again. Mm-hmm. That's something I won't have to concern myself with.
Well, good. Give me 1 sec. I forgot to grab my computer charger, so forgive me.
Sure.
I promise I'm more professional than that.
You're good. I had to make sure that I had full battery on here before I tested as well.
Yeah, because I had another podcast this morning, and then I saw the battery. I'm like, all right, I'll go upstairs, grab my charger, and then I walk into my daughter doing my wife's hair, and it's everywhere, and there's all these clips and stuff going on, and I forgot what I was doing. So the first thing I always ask people is, what is something you nerd out about, something you're super into, a hobby, something you've either been doing your whole life or something that's newer, something that gets you away from your job?
Yeah, great question, because I think everyone needs that. They need that getaway. Mine has been for many, many, many years is just general physical fitness and working out. It is an escape. It is a way for, as some people say, that it can clear their mind. Mm-hmm. It's a way that if you're frustrated or tensed, you can go into a gym and work out some of that frustration or that tension. Maybe it's just an alone period of time where as you're working out, you're in thought and you're not distracted. I don't like listening to music when I work out. I listen to podcasts.
Okay.
I am a history guy as well because I teach American history. So sometimes I'll listen to a faith-based podcast, or I might listen to an obscure history podcast and just get some information while I'm going through the workout. The reason I've done that is because as I went from high school athlete to college athlete, and then right after that, I went right into coaching, and I was put in charge of the strength and conditioning program at the high school that I was coaching at 21, 22 years old. So, and from there, I worked in a gym and the transition while I was in college. And then when you're in charge of a football program, that led to me also being put in place for the wrestlers, the basketball, track, volleyball. So some of the coaches in the school asked me to take over that position. And again, when you're doing with football, you're pretty much all year round.
Mm-hmm.
And in the weight room, I'm there. So might as well work out. So I wasn't one of those guys that just stood out and allowed them to finish. And I waited an hour and a half, 2 hours and didn't do anything. So what I've done in kind of pre-COVID is I made, and I have a pretty extensive gym in my basement right now.
Okay.
And actually, I just redid some things over the last few weeks. And if I do say so myself, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But it's a little sanctuary place.
Yeah.
I get up very early in the morning. I go down there, I work out, I start my day because I'd much rather get it done because you never know how you're going to feel by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
If you have energy. And obviously, as you know, with coaching and we're not getting out till 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening now, I'm not coming home and feeling like I'm going to work out. So I get up early. I do it. I've been doing it for a long period of time. And actually, I had a little bit of as I got athletically certified to be a trainer, I did that for a little while as well. So I've trained clients. And it's just something that I enjoy, and I enjoy giving that to other people as well when they're looking at certain goals that they want to set for themselves when it comes to that. So that would be in a long roundabout answer from just working out. And the one thing that I did the other day, you have these kids, and I'm new to the kids. So what do you do? You have to develop a relationship with these players at Perrysburg. So they get in the weight room, and I'm trying to, hey, here's the old guy. I'm 52 and I know what I'm capable of doing. So I got to let these kids know, so that way we can have a little bit of a relationship develop from that. And so I got on the dip bar and trying to challenge some of the kids and then whatever the kid did, and one of our players got to 30 and I said, okay, that's good. And then I got 60. So I doubled what he did. And obviously there's respect there.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing that to brag. I'm doing that so we have a little bit that they know that I'm going to push them. They know that if I'm going to push myself and I'm concerned about it, then the information that I'm giving them is going to be helpful to them down the road, whether it's in the weight room or on the football field or whatever it might be.
So I got a few questions. So you mentioned, I think it was important for you to say pre-COVID when you got all that stuff, because I know during COVID, that's what people wanted to do. And you couldn't find anything anywhere that you wanted.
Right. Everything got bought. And then obviously not only was it not there in the stores, but the prices for things were outrageous. Yeah.
So that it's cool that you have that little gym. I remember my dad has always been into fitness at some sort of level. And there was a time there where he bought a total gym from Chuck Norris, like the one Chuck Norris did, but he used it a lot. Like he really liked it and he used it quite a bit. And for him, it was really good and it worked out well. But I remember seeing those and Dad, you bought this off the TV? What is this?
What's funny about that is that all of those gadgets that you see in those infomercials, like the Chuck Norris and all that, like, if the people get them and use them, it's about being consistent.
Yeah.
If you get it like a treadmill and you use it for a few weeks and then it becomes a clothes hanger in your bedroom and it collects dust, that's not going to help you. But if you buy those things and are consistent, and that's the thing, just making it part of your day, part of a routine where it becomes a habit. And like I said, that's why I do it in the morning, because I know what my routine is. I get up, I start the day with my wife. We have a little devotion time, and then we're going to work out because we're going to start our day in that way. And if I don't, I can feel it. It's just something's off for the rest of the day. So that's just something that's become a habit. And so for a lot of people, they just have to realize that when they do it, they have to be consistent and make it something that's they don't dread, because if you dread something, obviously it's not going to last very long.
There was a time because I like working out, but I struggle with being consistent and doing it on a daily basis or 3 times a week or whatever it is. But there was one thing I really liked was kettlebells. I got into kettlebells and I would go on YouTube and Instagram and find all these exercises and stuff. And I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff you can do with kettlebells. And
Yes.
it was a fun and something I could do at home too, without, it doesn't take up a lot of space.
Right. And I know that you have some of your podcasts from the a kettlebell place in Perrysburg. Is that correct?
Oh,
Or
a CrossFit place.
CrossFit.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
But my wife started in kettlebells a few years ago, and she loves it
Yeah.
because and some of the things that she does with the core work and that's
Mhm.
I'm strong for my age and I'm fit, but there's some things that she does that I know I can't do with that. So that's a whole different thing in itself. With balance and coordination. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard workout. I remember I was doing yoga one time in my house. I was like, man, it's hard to do
Yeah.
some of those yoga things. Like, I'm not saying I thought it was going to be super easy, but it was one of the most difficult things I've done was yoga.
Well, it's a totally different from just lifting weights. You go in and
Yeah.
lift weights, you become used to what those things are. But whether it's CrossFit or kettlebell or yeah, it's a total. It's kind of like football and wrestling, right? You
Mhm.
can be in real good shape for football, but when you go to wrestling, that's a whole different animal
Yeah.
with the type of conditioning that's involved. So it's again based on what you do and what you're consistent with, and you get good at it, and then you try something else, and it's like, oh my gosh, this thing just kicked my butt.
Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot. You mentioned a few times getting up early. How early do you get up?
Well, for those that don't know, I live in Ann Arbor,
Mhm.
Michigan. So I'm coming to you from Ann Arbor right now. I'm a huge Ohio State Buckeye fan. Never in my life thought I would be living in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And but it's a great town. It
Yeah.
really is. It's a college town. My wife and I don't do a whole lot outside the house except that we like to go places and to go out to eat.
Mhm.
And obviously in Ann Arbor, there's a lot of very unique restaurants. We try to pick a new one every week just to go and check it out. And we're real pleased with, yeah, they're just a friendly community. It's clean. There's so many things to do, walking around, bike paths and walking paths and trails and all that sort of thing. So,
My sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh, go ahead.
My you brought up the restaurants. My parents were there a few weeks ago. I was just talking to my dad about it yesterday. He goes, "It's really cool." He goes, "Seems really expensive though." Like, he goes, "Other restaurants seem pretty expensive." I go, "That seems weird, odd." I mean, I'm sure because it's college town, there is other things, but he said that he liked it, he enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
it was pricey. And he's retired, so he has a different
Okay.
different budget.
Well, it's a very diverse community. And
Mhm.
so Ann Arbor tries to fit in with that diversity by catering with a lot of different style of restaurants from
Mhm.
all around the world, right? To cater to the people that live here. Um, what's funny about that, and the reason I live here, so we'll jump to that real quickly. So
Mhm.
I got married a year ago, and my wife is a principal at in Jackson, Michigan, at a school in Jackson, Michigan, and I teach in Maumee. So we had to find a halfway point. And Ann Arbor is exactly 50 miles to her work and 50 miles to my work in Maumee. So we ended up in Ann Arbor. We found, say, God led us to this place because the way it fell through was unbelievable, just how quick it happened. And
Mhm.
the fact that this place was even open when we needed it. It's a condo, it's a new condo complex. It's about a year and a half old. And it's expensive, as you said. The restaurants are expensive, things are expensive, the housing is unbelievable. The first time my brother came up here and I opened the door and he walks in, he goes, well, you guys are trying to be bougie on me. And I said, we're the poorest bougie people around here. I got neighbors who are doctors and engineers and
Yeah.
they work with IT and all these computer things, and for them it's no big deal apparently.
Mhm.
Anyway, so getting back to your question, my wife was in the Air Force years ago, and she got into a routine where she would go to the kettlebell classes in the morning before she worked out. So she just has like 4 o'clock in the morning, she wakes up. It's just part of her routine. She wakes up and she loves coffee. Absolutely loves coffee. So when she wakes up, hey, it's time to go get coffee. She's out of bed. And the fact that I have to get up as well, because what we do is and again, we have about that 45-minute commute in the morning, and we work out in the morning for about an hour, 45 minutes,
Yeah.
an hour each. And we like to do a little devotional time and have some coffee and just have some time to wake up and be with each other. And so about 4 to 4:15 in the morning, we wake up,
Uh-oh. Mark,
Go
you
off to
froze.
her gym, and I'll go in the basement, and we work
Mhm.
till about 6:30, and we get ready, and 7 o'clock I'm out the door. And she has a little extra time because she doesn't have to be there until 9, but I
Mm.
have to be there by 8 o'clock. So it makes for a long day.
Yeah.
Obviously with football right now, and we're all practices until about 6:30 or so, and I'll get home about 7:30. It'll be a long day, but I love it.
Yeah.
I would have done it, and without her blessing, because I was a coach for so long, but we just got married a year and a half ago. So she was never part of that lifestyle.
Mhm.
I talked about it. I've got a lot of memorabilia. I've got a lot of stories, but she was never a part of that. And I told her I would, coaching middle school, there's not the big commitment.
Mhm.
But I told her at this level, it's a 6 day a week, if not a 7 day a week. There's film study, there's practice, there's so many things that go on, and it's a long season. And I told her I would not do anything that would interfere with our time together. So as I looked at it and explaining it to her, she knew how important this was to me.
Mhm.
And we worked it through to where this is gonna benefit. She was at the game, our scrimmage this past week. She plans on being at all the home games, and a few of the away games are close enough as well. So she wants to be involved, and she knows the reason I do this. And this may be one of the questions you were going to ask later, but the reason I do this, and I have done this for over 30 years of my life now, is the relationship that I can build with young men and help them out. The football part of it is great. It's the competitive nature that all of us as coaches have. We were former athletes ourselves. Friday night is unbelievable. Just the competition, the game planning, the strategy. That's all cool. I really like the off season and trying to get kids ready and better, but it's the relationships that you build with these young men, and what you can give them and what they can take away as they become fathers and so forth on their own someday. And I've had numerous former players who are now over 40 years old on their own, or
On
now
there.
children. Yeah. They come back and they tell me directly, Coach, I owe you so much, because things that I do or I say, or maybe they got into coaching and they're saying, I coach because the way you coached, and I try to coach that way, and I learned from you. So coaching is about serving and giving back. And as Woody Hayes said, it's about paying it forward.
Mhm.
If you can give some wisdom and insight and doing it the right way, these kids who take it to heart will go out and pay it forward to their children as they go and maybe coach little league someday and do all those things. And so that's the gratifying part about it. That's what keeps me involved.
Yeah, and that's to speak about your wife for a minute. Like I always talk because it is a it's not just me or you coaching, like, because it's they also they're involved to some degree. Now, is it them having to go? Maybe they don't go to the games, but because you're not there late nights, maybe the coach is cooked, and now the wife is cooking, or their
Yes.
partner's cooking. So there's other responsibilities. For me, I have two younger kids, so my wife's always running the kids around to do what they got to do, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's a lot of stuff on her too. So I always it's kind of like a 1 year contract every year where I tell my wife, like, all right, here's the deal. We're doing this again. And it's almost unspoken, because she's never going to tell me no.
Right.
Because like you said, they understand like why we do it, and we love it so much. And it's a lot of fun. And especially now because my kids are getting involved, like, Mateo's the ball boy, and Lillian
Mm-hmm.
happened to be a water girl for the first, I don't know if
Yeah.
she's going to do it all season, but she did it for the first couple of games and air scrimmages. So it is a lot. And I think other people who aren't in coaching don't understand like how much it affects everybody,
It's a commitment. It really is a commitment. And there's an old joke. And you can say it's a joke, but it's somewhat true, as you mentioned, is about the football widows.
Mm-hmm.
From August until November. We're not home as often as we normally are. And if you have young children, and if you have other responsibilities at home, it often falls back to the wife,
Mm-hmm.
or the mother, obviously. And so they have to be involved in it as well. It's a commitment on their part. If you don't have someone at home that is willing to pick up all of that extra that is left behind, it
Yeah.
makes for a pretty difficult situation. So one, you have to have that continuity of, as a coach, then you have to make sure that when you are home, and I say as a coach, as a husband or a father, when you are home, you have to take responsibility and make sure that you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And make sure that they are still involved. And like your son, my sons both were water boys. My youngest daughter was, they dressed her up in their cheerleading outfit. And so they were all part of it. They enjoyed the Friday nights. They enjoyed being around the kids. And as a matter of fact, a funny story, my youngest daughter, my youngest child, who's 19 now and a freshman at University of Cincinnati, when I was the head coach at Clyde, my players over the summer really, I don't want to use the word hate, but they really, really did not like to see my daughter at that time, who was 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, come with me to practice or in conditioning days, because she wanted to be in charge of conditioning. And she would just make them do the most horrific, and wouldn't give them time in between. I would have to slow it down. They get done with the sprint and she would go. And I said, hey, Ava, that's a little time. And she would want them to do up downs and grass drills. And she just thought that was great. And these kids are like, well, that's coach's daughter. We can't say no.
Yeah.
But they did not like that. So my children were involved as much as they could be with that. And then, of course, they got involved in the sports later on, that sort of thing. And which is also weird, because when they're involved in sports, and if it's not football directly, and it's in the fall, you have to try and make time to get out of practice early enough to get to their games, to be able to. I did that a lot because my youngest was also involved in volleyball, and that's in the fall.
Yep.
So as soon as practice was over, or sometimes I might leave just a little early if it was an away, and bust out of there to go see as much as I could of her games. And so again, it's just a commitment that the family has to be involved in. It's not just about the coach.
Yeah, I'm coaching my daughter's softball team, and they do fall ball. So that's another thing. Like, all right, where can I skate out a little early, or how do I schedule practices? And lucky for me, I have 4 other coaches. So if I can't be there, or I'm late or whatever, we'll be fine. But I want to be all that and all that stuff I can. Also, I'm thinking way ahead, because she twirls baton, and she's been twirling. She'll be 9 in October. She's been twirling baton since she was like 3.5, and she's gonna be a Perrysburg majorette at some point. I was like, all right, so how am I going to navigate our halftime adjustments, and also trying to see if I can watch her participate every once in a while?
Yes. Well, fortunately, with technology, you have FaceTimes, you have videos, right?
Yeah.
So if you miss something, you can at least see the video. You can do those type of things.
Maybe I'll base it on the score.
Yeah.
If we're up a lot, then I'll see if I can get out there.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, but you have to do those things, because those are memories, and they're aware whether or not you're there. They want you, and they're your biggest fan when they're younger. And when they get older, of course, it might change a little bit. But when you're younger, you're the hero. You're the biggest. They're the biggest fan that could be, and they want to go out there and participate, and accepting and acknowledging and being a part of that. So yeah, that's my advice too for anyone else who's listening, is as you get older, you realize everything that especially for me, and I think it is for coaches. We were just talking about this the other day in the coach's office. You remember the losses, especially the close losses, a lot more than you do the wins, because it's always one play away, or you were one play, one win away from this special season, or whatever it was. And those things stick out. And as a parent, those losses, those little regrets come into your mind, because you can't go back in time. You can't change those things. And so my wisdom, now that I'm older, that I speak down to younger people, especially those that have young children, are just make sure you give the time and effort to make sure that is a priority, because not only will it be a memory for you, but they're going to eat that up, and they're going to enjoy that, and making sure that that's my dad, and he's important because I know he's doing his thing, but he makes me the priority that I need to be.
There was this, I always see it every once in a while on TikTok or Twitter, Modern Family. If you've ever watched Modern Family. So Ed O'Neill's character, the dad, the grandpa, he's talking about he's given a speech for something in front of the rest of the family. He's talking about when he goes, when you first have a baby, it's great. There's this baby and he's there, and just when you're starting to get to know the baby's gone, but it's okay because in that spot now there's this 2-year-old, and now you're learning all this new stuff about a 2-year-old, and then one day you wake up and that 2-year-old's gone, and now there's this older toddler, and he goes, it goes on and on and on, but it's okay because they're always getting replaced by something else, and you're learning and doing all these new things. He goes, and then one day you wake up and they all leave at the same time, and there's nothing to replace it anymore. And I think about that and I see it a lot, and I always watch it every time I see it because it's true. Every step is so new and you're excited even though this other step is gone. There's this other step here to replace it, and then eventually, like you said, they're all gone, and now you're like, all right, well, and then I think that's when those that you're talking about, those regrets and all that stuff comes into play, and all those little losses or little things that you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said this or should have said that. It comes in because now there isn't that other thing to replace it.
That's a good bit of writing, because someone went into thinking that, and maybe that was from their own life, and they said, I'm gonna put my life story into that little bit of that show, and that here's some advice that I can give, and let's make sure that this character, who's looked upon as the patriarch of that family, give this advice. And maybe some people take, like you said, they take that seriously in their own lives. I have 4 grandchildren right now, and so part of what I get to experience is like season 2, right? Yeah. I have 4 children of my own, being a part of their lives growing up, and now they're all adult age. Oldest is 30 and 27, 20, almost 26 and 19. And you go through all of the experiences. And what's funny, and most parents will probably say the same thing, even if you only have 2, you might experience this. They're all from the same household. They've all been raised pretty much the same way, same expectations, but they're all different.
Yeah.
They have their own personalities, their own likes and dislikes, and sometimes it's just hard to put a finger on, where did this person come from? Why are they like, and so that is a new experience, trying to, they're not, because they're not the same. You have to adapt as a parent to every child individually. And now I get to start doing that over again. I get to see that through my grandchildren, and that is so exciting because again, it's like God has given you a second round to go through that all over again. So you can't go back in time. You can't add more time to what has already been passed, but you can do it over again. And at this time, in your second level or your second phase, is really take the time to truly admire those moments, appreciate those moments, be careful about everything you say and do, and so forth, to give them that insight, and like I said before, eventually some of that wisdom when they start to understand things a little more. So I'm really excited. I know my wife is as well, about just being able to be a part of their lives and as much as we can.
Maybe that's why grandparents give their grandchildren whatever the hell they want ever. So
it's there's that fine line of spoiling and all that sort of thing. But my youngest grandson is just over 5 months old. Now, he can't understand the words that I'm saying, but he knows that I'm talking to him because there's eye contact. And if I talk in a certain voice level, he's paying attention at least. And what was so funny is the last time I saw him this past week, I said, hey, buddy, I said, you're going to know me as, we're going to have this relationship. I'm going to give you pretty much whatever you want. And I pointed to his dad and I said, now he's the one that has to do the discipline.
Yep.
And he's the one that's going to do all that stuff that I used to have to do. But now I'm going to be the good guy coming in, so that's what I look forward to.
That was a struggle for me at the beginning with my parents, because like with new parents, you're like, all right, everything is to the minute. We do this, you feed them this, don't feed them this, all this stuff.
Right.
Now some of that is for health reasons.
Sure.
And some of it is just because we want our children to do certain things. And then my parents had to sit with me and be like, okay, we'll do what you want us to do. Understand though, we're still going to do the things that we want to do, and we're never going to put your kid in danger. We're never going to do something terrible. Like it's always going to be good. So it was hard for me to understand. And then after a while, after they talked to me and sat me down, I was like, all right, I don't ask questions anymore. Is really what it is. Like I'll talk to I'll talk to my son when they come back. Like, all right, what'd you guys do? And then I say, what'd you guys do? And then he'll tell me, and I'm like, all right. And I try not to get into specifics. So
Yeah, well, maybe you've seen this. I'm seeing it from the parent or the grandparent now, and you're seeing this perhaps from the parent standpoint. Is it was really odd. So my oldest, who's 30, my oldest daughter, uh, she would drop off, she and her husband would drop off their first child. This is, oh my gosh, every little thing is too precise, and this is what we want. And they're telling us who raised them how to handle their child.
Yep.
Don't do this, do this. Be careful about this. And like you said, if there is a need specifically health-wise, yeah, I get it. And the medicine, maybe they're taking some medicine and whatever dosage. I get that, but I raised you. Okay. I know how to do this. I've been through this 4 times.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when they're the parent, they're like, hey, are you sure about that? Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm like, okay, you're right. Yeah. And then when they leave, they're just like, okay.
And that's what it was. That's what it was at the beginning. But then I think for my parents, it got too much where I was too much on them. And that, that was, they're probably right. Like, but they did tell us, like, hey, I understand. We did the same stuff too. We get it. But just and then they're like, you remember when your grandma took you and she would just give you $5 bill after $5 bill at the Red Baron so you could play video games all day? Like, that's the kind of stuff. They just let you eat whatever they want. We're going to do that too. I was like, all right, we're just, realize there is consequences there for whatever reason. My son has puked 3 times by staying the night over there, so he doesn't quite understand when to stop. So
well, my wife said this: our house is never going to be a place that our grandchildren don't want to come to.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want to come here. They're going to ask their parents, let's go to grandma and grandpa's. We want to go because when they're here, we're going to make it. It's going to be fun. It's interesting. We're going to have a good time. They're developing in their little minds who we are, who they don't get to see every day.
Mm-hmm. And
so we want it to be something that they look forward to. And obviously there's parameters around it. Obviously, as you said, we're going to keep them safe. We're going to, what my children may not realize is that for as much as they love their children now, when they're in my care, I would die for any one of them. Without thinking about it. So we're going to keep them as absolutely safe as possible, but we're going to have a whole lot of fun when they're here.
I know right now my parents in their living room, they have like a 5-foot dollhouse that's in their living room because that's what's needed. And my mom asked, like, does she like does Lillian still want this here or need this here? I go, I probably. So my mom makes a point, like when they come over, she buys like new little things, and my daughter immediately goes to the dollhouse and see what's new there that she can play with. But she plays with it every time she goes over there. It's just in her living room. Just
that's and isn't that funny that maybe when you were the parent, you wanted the house to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Maybe you had your toy room or whatever it was, but now it's just like, just come over and have fun. And
yep.
We'll have a dollhouse or a jump house, we'll have the inflatable jump house in the basement, whatever. We're going to do it because that's going to be the place that they want to come and hang out. And I think grandma and grandpa are pretty cool.
Oh yeah. I don't know a lot about your coaching history, and I kind of want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
You said you've been coaching for what? Oh, you said over 30 years.
This is my 32nd year in a row.
Okay. So I asked Coach Sims out in the first day of 2 days. I go, how many? What season is this in 2 days? He said 35. I go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm only 38. So
yeah. You think about something that you've done. You hear these people online or on TV, and they're experts. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I know I'm in that situation now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert. There's so much to learn about this game, and the game is evolving. I'm getting so much from Coach Ward, who's coached at Division I level, and I've always been more on the offensive side of the ball anyway. So I'm learning a lot from him and how he is from, again, that Division I level, what those coaches are evolving into, and how defenses change up.
Mm-hmm.
Because and as you mentioned, Coach Sims, we've been around it for over 30 years. we can share a lot of the same experiences. So when we played and started coaching, everyone was in the I formation or wing
Mhm.
tee. Everybody was running basic things, and you ran one of two defenses, and that was to stop the run. And everyone was basic. The only game plan you did was who's their best player, because
Yeah.
you're all going to run the same plays. And now you don't know what you're going to get from week to week. You know, the offenses have changed. They spread out. They give you different formations. We are a multi-formation team, as you know,
Yep.
double tights, one tight, no tight, empty, spread. I mean, you have to, as a defensive guy, be ready for anything. And so you have to have multiple defenses. And how do you prepare? How do you blitz? How do you scheme? How do you do coverages and disguise coverages? And there's so many things that go involved in this. And then you have to be a coach to be able not only to understand it yourself, but to explain it to a 16, 17-year-old kid. And that's the challenge in itself. So we talk about how things have evolved over those last 30 years. And so again, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly involved in whatever it is I can pick up. But there's also the saying that I've used before with with others, is that I've forgotten more football than you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because as a student of the game, going to coaches clinics, the DVD watching, one-on-ones with coaches, just learning over time period. There's things that I know about football that I really have forgotten about because they're kind of archaic.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't see them anymore. Right. And so just coming into this aspect, even though I've coached middle school for the last 4 years, now coming into a Division I school coached by a former Division I university, Division I coach, bringing in these new concepts, I'm learning. So again, as anybody tells you they're an expert at something, you might know a lot about it, but if something's always evolving, there's always something to learn. And I don't know if we can be classified as experts on anything, but real quickly. So I played a little bit of college football down at Mount St. Joseph in Cincinnati, which is now a Division III. At that time, it was NAIA, but they've moved over to NCAA Division III now.
Did you go to high school down there too? Is that where you're from?
No, I went to high school. I was born and raised in Sydney, Ohio, which is on I-75. It's about an hour and a half south of Perrysburg, right on 75. And ironically, we were the Yellow Jackets. So
really?
I'm full circle, and I'm now back with the Yellow Jackets. Yeah. So I played there and then went to school down in Cincinnati, and my college coach, some of the listeners might know if they're old school football. My college coach was John Pont. Now, John Pont went to the University of Miami way back in the 40s, and he is one of only two players that has his number retired at the university. And then later on, he became a coach at Miami. I was a head coach at Yale and Indiana. As a matter of fact, I think it was 68 or 69. Indiana won the Big Ten and went out to the Rose Bowl and lost to O.J. Simpson's USC team. So John Pont is a legend in college coaching. He's part of what's called the Cradle of Coaches at the University of Miami, where they've had lots and lots of successful college coaches and guys that went on to the NFL as well. Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, Weeb Eubank, and just a bunch of coaches that were started in and around Miami and Oxford. So anyway, really got me interested in wanting to coach. And I actually had an injury for a few weeks. And they moved me from safety over to quarterback because I couldn't do a whole lot of running, that sort of thing, but I could throw a little bit. So he coached the quarterbacks. And the more and more I was around him, the more I got to talk to him. He got me really, really involved in just a different aspect of football than I ever thought. And it was about the coaching aspect. And so at about 21 years old, I was still going to college. I transferred to get closer to home because I was going to do my student teaching. I realized or thought I was going to be wanting to get back into Sydney, which is where I graduated from. And so from Cincinnati, I transferred up to Wright State University, which is in Dayton, and they have a community college, or not community college, but a lake around St. Mary's. So it's an offshoot of that. Anyway, I wanted to get closer to Sydney so I could do my student teaching there, and doing that to get involved in the coaching. So yeah. I'm 21 years old. I transfer. I do my student teaching. And at 21, I'm helping coach varsity football. And I'm scouting and I'm going to the games and I'm breaking down film and I'm doing all those things. And the following year, at 22 now, we changed head coaches. I did well enough, impressed people enough with my work ethic and so forth that he hired me on staff. So here I am coaching kids who are 17, 18 years old and and I'm still going to college. I'm still taking college classes and coaching varsity football, and they put me in charge of the JV. So I'm coaching 2 varsity positions, and I'm the special teams coordinator, and I'm the JV head coach.
Hey, would you have like 4 coaches there? What?
No, they just dunked me into everything. They said, okay, sink or swim. Here's what you're gonna route. Because we didn't do 2 platoon. Everybody coached 2 positions, offense, defense, right? And so and then I got a taste of victory. We had some good kids. We won some games. I thought, this is something I want to do for a long period of time. And so I was an assistant for 5 years. And then at 26 years old, I got an opportunity to go to Brookville High School, which is not too far from Dayton, Ohio. And they had a coaching change very late into the year. Their coach resigned and took another job, and it was June. So you're going into summer conditioning and camps and all that stuff. So it's a mad scramble. The principal I had at my middle school is from Brookville, went back to take over the principal job at the elementary in Brookville, and saw this position open and realized that this might be something I'm interested in. And so I interviewed, and within 2 weeks I had the job at 26.
You were head coach at 26 years old?
26 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. With 5 years of experience coaching, and I was never a varsity coordinator. I was a special teams coordinator. I was a JV head coach, but I was not an offensive or defensive coordinator. And I got this job.
Can I tell you, sorry, before you go,
go ahead.
So that reminds me, so a few years ago when the Northview job was open, I applied for the head coach job at Northview. And same boat. Like, I was on a varsity staff for 3 years. I was a JV head coach. Not an offensive defense coordinator. So I got an interview, and I was surprised. I'm like, all right. So I go through the interview process, and then at the end, they're like, "Do you have any questions for us?" And I only had one besides like regular other questions, but the one that I really wanted to ask, I turned to the athletic director and I said, "Why did you interview me? Like, there's a lot of coaches out there, head coaching experience. I haven't even been a coordinator. I'm just curious," because I go, "Trust me, like, I'm excited. I'm glad you did, but what stood out to you?" And they said, "Well, besides like the people you listed on your resume, like, we know a lot of people, so we're going to call people." And they ended up calling Andrea Monheim, who is now the athletic director at Perrysburg Junior High, but she was a track coach, and I had coached with her previously. I helped the high school one time, and then I was a track coach for a long time, and she knew me for a while. So they talked to her. It's like, basically, we called around and found and wanted to look more into you, and we like how you treated the athletes and the stuff you did for your community and all this stuff. And it made me feel like, I felt good that I got a chance to interview but hearing all that other stuff is like, all right, all this other stuff I'm doing besides the actual coaching part is important too. And other people see it. And that's I felt good about that. Like doing all that other stuff, that I was like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's working for
100%, because I heard long ago from a coach that you should coach your players as you would want your son to be coached. If you're hard on your son and you have that relationship with him, then you coach your players like that. But you don't demean and degrade and put down, because one, if that is your son, you're going to hear about it from your wife when you get home. So that's not good.
Yeah.
But coach with respect, coach with you're in charge, but make sure that they're going to come away. And another little bit of wisdom that I heard is that how many kids that you coach are actually going to make a living playing football? Minuscule.
Very few.
Yes. How many kids are going to go to college and have their college paid for because of football? Again, very, very, very small amount of those students. So most of them are going to be there for 3 or 4 years at the high school level, and that's it. What are they going to take away from you? And it's not going to be X's and O's. That's going to be the most important thing in their life. How to block, how to tackle, how to shed a block, whatever. That's fine for when you have them for that particular part of life. But what are they going to take with them afterwards? And if you don't do that as a coach, especially as a head coach, where you're setting a culture, where you're getting these parents who talk to their boys, their sons every night. What did you do at practice today? What did the coach say? What did you take away from this? Well, you can better believe that if you give your players the wrong information, go about it the wrong way, those players are going to tell their parents, and their parents are going to have some issues, and the athletic director and the people in the school are going to know, and they're going to say, hey, this guy's not doing it the right way. He's more interested in the wins and losses and football, and he wants to win and everybody wants to be successful. But again, not many of them are going to go beyond their 18th birthday when they leave you and be able to take with all the practice drills with them.
Yeah.
It's going to set them up for success for the rest of life. What did you instill in them? What are they going to take away from that? And that is hugely important, especially as a head coach, because again, you're building that culture. But here's what you got to realize, and maybe what other people don't realize. Let's say you got 50 people on this football team, you got 50 individuals. You got 50 individuals that are not necessarily friends or have much in common. And it's your job as a head coach to bring all of them together for one common purpose and one common goal. And how are all of us going to get to that goal? And then you have a staff, and we have a large staff at Perrysburg. They all have individuality. You all have personalities. You all have differences of opinions. But how are we going to bring all those men together? Again, for one purpose and one goal, and to do it the right way, and to trust everyone to do it the right way. That's huge. So it's not just about football or your football knowledge. Everybody who's going to apply for a job has football knowledge and has had some success. Otherwise, they want to put their name in there because they didn't think they'd have a shot.
Yeah.
All of the other little things that go involved in it. And that's one of the reasons why, coaches get a little bit upset when they have the parents come down on them about this or this or this, because that's just a small, small part of everything that we do. But to get back to so I'm 26. They say, hey, by the way, we have camp in 2 weeks, and these kids have already paid their money. So we've got camp in 2 weeks, and you have to hire a staff. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody there. I'm living in Sydney. It's a 45-minute commute, kind of like what I'm doing now from Ann Arbor to Perrysburg.
Yeah.
And I know that this next couple of weeks and the next several months are just going to be chaotic. And I've got, at that time, 3 little ones at home. And wow. So that was a whirlwind. And what I was trying to do real quickly, without, boring people that might be listening to this, to get in the technical part of it, but having an option to go in and do that. So as an assistant coach, there was a school, Valley View, Germantown, Ohio, Valley View High School, which is in the Southwest Buckeye League at that time with Brookville. And Valley View won 3 state championships in the 1990s. And Jay Neiswanger, who's in the Athletic Hall of Fame, Football Coaches Athletic Hall of Fame now, was the head coach then. It was kind enough that when I would go to clinics and he was speaking, I would go in the breakout room and dissect his brain, and I'm writing down and it basically is kind of the run and shoot. And I'm saying, and there's some option involved. And I said, yeah, if I become a head coach, this is what I want to do. This is my style of offense. And then I get this job, and I'm going to be facing this guy now. I didn't realize that. Well, it also didn't take me long to figure out that I didn't have the athletes that he had. Yeah. So I'm install this offense, and we are terrible. I mean, we are just awful. And I'm going to tell you a real funny story. So it's my first head coaching job. We're playing Coldwater, and Coldwater, again, for a lower division, but they are in and around the state championship game every year in Division 5, 4, 5, 6, wherever they've fallen over the last several years. And we got a contract with them. This is when they were just starting to get really good. John Reed was their head coach, and they were just starting to turn the corner and get good. So it's a home game, Brookville to Coldwater. It's about an hour and a half bus ride. And this is a true story. So we're just getting it handed to us. I've come from a little success, in JV level, and we've won. And now all of a sudden you're looking forward to your first head coaching job, and this is your first game, and you go out there. Honest to goodness, this is what was happening. So we're getting beat. I think the final score was something like 52-0, 56-0, whatever it was. Here's the story. I look up at the scoreboard, and I see the clock winding down to 0. And I say out loud in the headphones, I say, oh, thank God this is almost over. And I look down and I look back up, and it jumps back to 12. That was the end of the third quarter. I thought the game was over.
Okay.
I wanted the game to be over. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we got 12 more minutes of this. And we gave up 2 more touchdowns to their JV, so it was like 40 something to the nothing at that point. And we just got it hammered. And now we got an hour and a half bus ride back. And again, I'll give you some wisdom and some insight. So that next day, we're breaking down film before the kids come in. And I've got a few young coaches on my staff, and they're saying, Coach, you're too nice to these guys. You got to get on them. They're taking advantage. They didn't play hard for you. This was an embarrassment. You've got to change up. And I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. We can't have this anymore. If I want to be a successful one, we've got to change this up. So when they came in that day and for the next 2-3 days, I was all over them. I was this, that, everything else, and a totally different personality than what I was before. And about the 3rd or 4th day into it, I said to my staff, I can't do this anymore. I'm acting. I'm playing a part. And this is exhausting. This isn't who I am. You guys want to do that? That's you. Do that. Okay. Be an assistant, have some individuality. Go be that player or that coach to that player, whatever. But I can't do that. And so that was a lesson. Whatever you do, you got to be yourself. If you're trying to be something else, just to appease other people, it's exhausting and it's a lie. And you're not yourself. You're not going to be as good as you can be. So that's something that I got out of that. So anyway, I think we went 2-8 that year. And by my 4th year, and I committed myself. I got up early. I went down there. I opened the weight room before school at 6 o'clock in the morning, 45-minute drive every morning over the winter. And just what we did, the culture, changing it up, weight room, making sure that we were strength conditioning was as well as it could be at that time. By my 4th year, we were 9-1. We beat Valley View at their place. Oh. So that was the team, right? So matter of fact, Brookville had not beaten Valley View in 10 years at that point, and they had lost a home game in 9 years. That's how they were. And we beat them in the last seconds to win the league, to go 9-1. And then the next week, we hosted the school's first ever home playoff game.
That's great.
Yeah. So in 4 years, all that work, all that being away from home, all that sacrifice, everything else worked. And we went all the way to the regional championship, and we lost in the last minute 14 on a hook and lateral. Otherwise, we're in the state semifinals, and we had a team to do it. I really believed it. We had a very good team. So the next year, in that off season, the Sydney job opens up, and I had the AD and the head of the boosters call me and said, would I be interested in coming back home, being the head coach? And I told both of them with respect, no, I've got a really good team here, and we've got a lot of kids coming back. I'm good where I'm at.
Yeah. But how hard was that decision? Because that's your home.
Yeah.
Hometown.
Well, I waited. And Sydney had struggled. They were 1-9. This coach was leaving, and they were 1-9. Yeah. And I'm 1. Why do I want to go and try to rebuild? But the closer we got to the date where they weren't going to take any more candidates, my wife at that time and I decided being able to go back home. It was a jump from Division 5 to Division 2. The money was a little bit different, but it wasn't significant. But it was just a chance to go back home and have family nearby. And with young children, that was going to be helpful because, like you said, it's just nicer to have the grandparents close by.
Oh, yeah.
And so I go back, and they were 1-9 the year before, and I install the offense. I do all the same thing, and we're 5-5. We jump to 5-5, and we lose one game in overtime to the defending state champions. We lose 7-0. They were ranked number 1 in the state at that point. We lost in overtime, and there was another one where we lost on the last second field goal as well. So we were really, really close to being 7-3. So that big jump. So I'm there for 4 years, and we're okay. We're not world beaters, but we're 6-4, 5-5. We're right around that edge. We beat the rival. We beat Piqua, and we do come back and beat them the following year and that sort of thing. And Piqua won the state championship, I think, in 05. And so, or excuse me, like 03, 04, 05, something like that. Anyway, having some success, but Sydney started going through a really bad levy problem. And it got to the point where pay to play per sport was $400 per sport. So it was $1,200 a year if you wanted to play all 3 sports. They eliminated busing. The athletic department was really going to take a hit. I saw the writing on the wall, and I said, I don't want to be a part of this because I just know where this is going. So I put my name out there again, and I started searching around. I actually had an interview in Champaign, Illinois, at Central High School in Illinois. I went out there. We looked into Hilton Head a little bit because if we're going to move, let's move. We're going to. But as it was going on into the winter, Clyde opened up, and this literal rural community, and never been up there in my life. I heard a little bit about it. They won a state championship in '95, but they had been kind of on the downtrend over the last decade. And that position opened up because their head coach, his son, was a scholarship player at the University of Cincinnati, and he wanted to have time to be able to go watch his son play football.
Yeah.
So they had an opening, and I put my name in there. And after a while, I found out that I was the third choice because, again, I'm coming off a 1-9 season in Sydney. It was terrible. I mean, we just fell off the face of the earth. And so I interviewed, and they liked what I had done in the past at Brookville, for instance, and at the beginnings of Sydney. But they had some guys that were maybe a little more successful earlier, right, than I was. Looking at that time period, and that was about 2005. So I'm the third choice because the other two, matter of fact, the guy that was their second choice took my job at Sydney. He's the one that ended up.
Oh, really?
Sydney. He went through those Levy years. He was there, I think, 3 or 4 years and got out. Didn't have success. But again, they wanted to go there because it was a little bigger city than it was in Clyde. So I'm glad they all turned it down because I went from 1-9 the year before, and that year 2005, we went 9-1 and went to the state semifinals. And again, we were a play away from going to the state championship. It was that close of a game, and there was a turnover early, and that was the difference of the ball game. And otherwise, we're going to the state championship. So that took off. I was there 8 years at Clyde as a head coach. We won 6 conference championships. We went to the playoffs 5 times, 2 regional finals, and a state semifinal. And I would love to tell you that it was all the head coaches doing, but I had a great staff. And we just had outstanding football players.
Mm-hmm.
My first year, we have the state defensive player of the year. 2 years later, we have the state offensive player of the year. That kid ends up going to and playing for the Green Bay Packers for 2 years.
Wow.
Kids that are coming in. I think I had 13 or 14 first team all-state players in 8 years. I had 5 kids go Division I. And it was just like we were reloading every year. We're losing this kid. What are we going to do? And we just would reload every year. And then it started feeding itself.
Mm-hmm.
The program was the program. And the kids held themselves to a high accountability in the weight room and just making sure that we don't want to have a down year, and being that it was that senior class who let everybody down, so just keeping it where it was going. However, and not to say anything negative about Clyde, great community, great people. But it's one of those things that if you're not from the community, sometimes you don't fit in 100%. And there's people who have been there and will be there for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Wanted to see things go a certain way, wanted things done a certain way. And I just didn't feel that, we were having success. I just didn't feel that I needed personally to change things because I had some loyalty to the people I've been with for a long period of time. We had a lot of success. So I said, that's fine. I'll look other places. And it's
crazy to me that all the success, all the, you're there for 8 years, like everything's just going well. And then small communities, it is just like one person or 2 people. And then it just, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. And then also maybe it's the community too, being there for 8 years and just not feeling like I'm not 100% part of this, and I don't think I'll ever will be.
Yeah, and again, I have really good things, good memories about Clyde, and some friends that I will have the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a memorial service this past summer for the guy whose name was Marc Roche, a longtime coach and teacher over there, and he was the voice of the Flyers. He did all the football games, basketball games. He was the announcer, and I had a relationship with him, obviously, and he'd passed away from cancer this past summer, and had a memorial service, and I got to go back there and see some people I haven't seen in a long time. And I'm welcome back. I have good relationships with those people. I have nothing bad to say about it, but perhaps it was just time for me to move on.
Yeah.
And they had success. The machine has kept working. Ryan Carter's the head coach now. They won a state championship a few years ago. They're in the playoff hunt every year. And so I'm thankful that I had that opportunity, but I feel good about what we did to get it started. And it's been a machine for the last 20 years.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
To say that I helped get it started and go in that
Mhm.
direction is an accomplishment. And so I came to Maumee, and as people in the know that Maumee had some success. The Coach Bowles had in the last 90s, early 2000s playoffs. But we don't have those same players, and everybody will tell you that. And as Perrysburg and Anthony Wayne were once very small school developed properties, and the population has exploded in both Anthony Wayne School District, Perrysburg School District, Northview, Southview, obviously Sylvania. Maumee is landlocked, right? We are landlocked on the Maumee River and the Turnpike and 475. And we're just this little community that used to be decent size in the league. And now it's one of the smallest schools in the league. And there's not much room for growth. We would have, for instance, when I first started coaching 7th grade in 2000, gosh, what was that? 18, 19, something like that. It must've been 19. I think it was a year before COVID. We had 13 kids come out for football, 7th grade football. 13 kids. We didn't even know if we were going to be able to field a team.
Yeah.
And maybe we could combine the 7th and 8th grade because we just didn't have the kids. So we've seen less and less come into that program. We've seen some of our top athletes leave for other schools.
Mm-hmm.
And the schools that we compete against in the league are getting bigger, and we're not growing. So we had some success. As a matter of fact, I always say, not to be bragging, but I was the last Maumee head coach to beat Perrysburg and win the Tone Bell. And that'll never happen again.
You're right.
Because Maumee and Perrysburg, 99% will never play each other again in football. So I can say that at least 2017, I was the last one to get that bell.
Well,
So
I've been a part of 2 devastating losses to Maumee. It was that one. I was just I think at the time I was still a junior high coach. Or no, I would have been a freshman coach by then, the head freshman coach.
Okay.
And it was that one, that loss, that was frustrating.
In the mud, in the rain.
Yep. And then when I played, I was a junior in 2001, and we were undefeated. And Maumee was 8-1 going into the last game, and we lost. We split the league title, but our team, my junior year, would have been the first team to ever play in a playoff game at Perrysburg. But we were 9-1, and we did not make the playoffs.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, because at that time they took 8, so we did not make it.
And all strength of schedule and computer points.
We played Clyde that year, and Clyde, I think they only won 2 games, so that was a big downer for us. And I think we played a city league school that year too, so it didn't work out. But those, like you said, we remember the losses. I remember those.
Those stick out for some dumb reason. You can celebrate, win championships, and have great memories with that, and those losses are the ones that come back and kick you in the pants, because you realize those losses kept you from having more of those joys and successes and memories.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And you look back at the near misses and the near what could have been, right?
Yeah.
So
it might have been a good thing. I remember we were talking about it, and we still talk about it to this day. We're out of high school 20 years, and me and my friends talk about it. If we would have gotten the playoffs as the 8th seed, we either would have played. Do you remember Justin Zwick? He was a quarterback, ended up going to Ohio
State. And then absolutely.
So we would have either played his team or Maurice Claret's team.
Okay.
So,
one or the other. You're getting the Ohio State guys.
Yeah.
How about that? That's something to look forward to as well, because I took Brookville to the playoffs. I go to Sydney, and we just missed. I think we finished 9, and they took the top 8, and we just finished. And that was a couple of times. One we were 10, one we were 9, so we almost went to the playoffs for 2 years. And then of course at Clyde we went 6 years. But when I came to Maumee, my second year here, we finished 5-5 or something like that, but we just missed the playoffs. And we lost to Springfield in overtime. Had we beat them, we would have been in. We've been number 8.
Yeah.
But by number 8, we would have had to play Central Catholic.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, that would have been great to get in, to say we went in, but that wouldn't have been fair. So it's the woulda couldas, but maybe there was a reason we didn't do it. So 2017, we had success. We won the Ding Dong Bell. We had a good senior class. I've got a kid who's still playing at Eastern Michigan from that class. A kid that went
nice.
to West Point, who was a wrestler, and we had another few kids that went on to play collegiate sports, wrestling or football. So we had good athletes. We were able to compete and put guys on the field to compete against the teams that we play. And then after that, again, those kids lost, meaning that we lost them. I'd say they graduated. And my final year, 2018, there's 5 teams in our program: 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman, JV, varsity. In those 5 teams in 2018, Maumee won a combined 5 games.
Oof.
So I saw what was coming up. Again, I'm not bragging. I'm just stating what I know, that what I've done in the past at the 3 previous schools I've been to and Maumee, the time, the commitment, the effort, everything that's put into becoming, or at least trying to become successful and be consistent and be successful and having some success.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that just wasn't going to happen here. And I didn't have the time, the patience, the energy to go through that. And to see that and being honest with myself, because I thought I would go to, I retired from teaching, and I'd be a head coach the rest of my career. I thought, this is it. I love football. I love the relationships that are built. I love the opportunity that every fall we get to do this. And for me to think that I'm going to step down from something that I've done for, at that time, 27 years in a row, that I'm not going to be able to do that anymore, because I didn't know what was on the horizon. I didn't know what was going to happen. And if you step down, and you step down after a 1-9 season I've had, and then we go 9-1 the year before at a new place. But I'm stepping down again from that 1-9 season. And what would I be in contention for a new coach? Would I even be interested in? So that took a lot. And when I stepped down, I had the opportunity to just reevaluate a lot of things. And so I had an AD at the middle school at that time who had coached varsity sports when he was younger, and became a middle school coach. And he said, look, you may not think that you can do this or want to do this, but you're going to have a lot of fun. Trust me, this is going to be a lot of fun. So I ended up doing it, and I did it for 4 years. I coached 7th and 8th grade as they grew. And then I went back down to 7th and 8th grade and stayed with that team as they became 7th and 8th graders. And over Maumee, many people know Maumee struggled varsity wise.
Mm-hmm.
There's unfortunate. They have the longest losing streak in the state of Ohio right now. There's not been a whole lot of success. Obviously going to a new league, they have a chance to be more competitive.
Yep.
Coaching staff, new enthusiasm, all that sort of thing, going in the right direction. But over those 4 years coaching middle school football, I had by far the best record of any program in Maumee football over those 4-year period. And that was because obviously I have experience. I know some things that I'm going up against some guys that maybe don't have that experience. But it was just that competitive nature again, right? You're still involved. And actually I coached wrestling, middle school wrestling. I coached middle school track. I was staying involved because, again, it's about what can you do for these kids and making them better. And I was trying to fill that void with now 13, 14-year-old kids, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. But you don't get them as long. You're not with them quite as long as you are with the varsity sport. So anyway, I'm coaching track this past spring, and my phone goes off, and it's Dirk. And he says he wanted to ask me some questions, and he said, hey, are you ready? When are you going to be ready to get back into it? And I said, it's got to be the right situation. I told him about my situation where I live. I just got married. It's got to be the right situation. But it was intriguing because it's right across the bridge. It would be I'm here at Maumee anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I could still teach at Maumee and still go over there and coach at Perrysburg. So a lot of things kind of fell into place. And I still thank him today for this opportunity to get back involved, and not just being involved in Perrysburg football and the success that they've had and Division I, going up against some of the competition that we're going to see, the great athletes that are going to go and play on TV on Saturdays at big time programs. But now you get to compete against those players and strategize against those coaches, get back into the mix. And Friday night is just unbelievable. I've done BCSN work over the last 3 years. I've been doing the BCSN game of the week and following around. I've done a lot of Perrysburg games over the last 3 years, Central Catholic and their run to the state championships and deep in the playoffs the last 2 years. So actually coaching middle school football and watching how other coaches coach from a bird's eye view up in the booth on Friday nights doing BCSN, I've become a better coach. I know
sure.
because I've been able to see it from a different perspective. Where I don't have a dog in the fight on Friday night, but I've been able to see how would I attack this situation? What I would give advice. Hey, coach, I would take a timeout. I would do this. I would do that, and see if those things would transpire. And coaching middle school, there's patience, so much patience involved, and knowing that they're young, and for some of them, this is the first time they've ever got this information. So having patience, having seen it from a different perspective, I've grown as a coach. So even as I said at the beginning of this podcast, you're not an expert. You just continue to grow and grow. And I've had an opportunity to learn in a different way. And now, shoot, I'm coaching corners. And who do I get to talk to every other day? I get Coach Glanville. Coach Glanville comes in and he says, hey, I had Deion Sanders, Tim McKyer, and Brian Jordan. I was the best DB coach in the league. He just gives me that wink, like, well, I had the best players. Yeah. I got a Hall of Fame player, and I got a guy that also played, besides Deion, Brian Jordan played Major League Baseball as well. And it was easy, right? You just go out and play ball. So I get to pick his brain. So I'm still learning. I'm learning from him. And like I said, with Coach Ward. And so I'm a better coach. I continue to become a better coach. And if an opportunity comes open in or around the area that I might, again, that right situation, I'm not going to be a head coach just to be a head coach.
Yeah.
I am 18 wins away from 150 wins in my career.
Yeah.
18 away. And I knew I was getting close, and I stepped down from that. And it's a milestone. It's not a big deal, but right? To say 150 wins in your career. If the right situation comes back, I'd like to go after those 18 wins.
Yeah.
And but it's got to be the right situation. And I get to retire from teaching in 5 years.
Nice.
I'm at that point. I got 5 years. And I told Dirk, if nothing happens and I'm here for 5 years coaching with you, man, my name's going to be all over this thing, because I'm going to coach as if I'm the guy. I want you to succeed. I want this team to succeed. I want us to succeed. I want my players to. My name's in Perrysburg football right now, and I want us as a program to have all those accolades and all those wins and be as successful as possible. And I'm going to coach my rear end off. And I want Dirk to know that. And he knew that going in. But if something were to open up, then I'll take a look at it for sure. Because whether it's being greedy or selfish or whatever,
it's fun. It's like fun to be in charge. Yeah.
I'd like to get those 18 wins. As a matter of fact, talking about being in charge. So when I left Sydney and before I came to Clyde, I was in that transition, and the head coach from Bluffton College called me up and asked me if I had any under the radar prospects that hadn't committed anywhere. And I told him that I had resigned and he wasn't aware of that. He said, hey, would you be interested in being my DB coach here at Bluffton? Which is an honor, thankful, coaching level at the college level.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, Coach, and whether this is politically correct or not yet today, I said, I still want to be a chief and not an Indian.
Yeah.
At that point, I still wanted to be a head coach. And of course, I was able to go on to Clyde and have success there. But I just felt that I had that to give. But now I'm at that stage of my career that as an assistant, and I told Dirk, I will help you out wherever you want. Use my resources, my knowledge, my experience. But, we have a good staff. We obviously have a very good staff, a lot of experience on staff, a lot of people that are, I really love how we get it. And then we can get in a situation, we talked about this before, where you've got all these guys who have families, experiences, and you're bringing them all together. And I think our personalities really mesh well. I think we have a good continuity in that coaching staff room. I think we're all in it for the right reasons, and we work well together. So I told Dirk, if nothing happens and I'm there for 5 years, I love it. I love being able to coach these kids and being in that competition. Obviously being a BCSN, I'm well aware of the student section. as the student section of the
It's
year.
so fun. Yeah.
And how loud they are. I mean, we're behind closed glass and stuff, and we can hear these people going just absolutely bonkers. And that environment there is just really awesome, what Friday nights in Ohio are all about. And so I'm just now grateful that I get to be down the sidelines with that and being involved. My wife, as I said, is really excited about seeing that because she was a cheerleader at her school, but Ohio football is different than Michigan football. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
The environment, and you got to be at the right school and that sort of thing. But when you get to see it and how much the community like Perrysburg involves themselves, identifies themselves with.
Sorry, you cut out for a minute.
Oh, I just said it's a special thing to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're there. Like I didn't know anything about you or anything, and obviously now I know a lot. But it is fun to talk to you. And like you said, having a good group of coaches. I mean, if our coaches room can be filled with smiles and laughter, when in between practices, that's it. To me, that's a good room, and it sometimes it takes time because there is a bunch of different personalities and people trying to figure everyone out and doing all this stuff. And when Coach Connor first came in, it was like that because there was three of us that were there from Coach Kriegel's staff, and then he brought in some new guys. So it's just trying to figure out everybody out, but it's fun. I love doing it, and just like you, it's fun being in charge. And there was a point in my time in my life where I was like, yeah, I want to be a head coach. I still do, but it's kind of taking a back seat because my kids are in Perrysburg, and I can't imagine being at a different school because I want to be a head coach and not being able to watch my son play football.
Right.
So there's some things that shifted, but once they're done, who knows? Like I love being at Perrysburg. That's where I graduated from, and I like being a part of it, like being part of the community. And when my friends come back, I like if they're able to come check out a game and do all this stuff. So it's fun being in Perrysburg. And I promise this Friday my wife will be in the in the section behind you. So I looked over there and your wife's sitting by herself. I'm like, oh,
herself. No. Yeah. Well, we had talked. Obviously, there was a threat of rain, and there was a lot of things that were happening. And I talked earlier in the week to some of you to see how many wives were going to be there, so my wife could be introduced and get to know you guys and your wives. And then circumstances were Coach Ward's wife. There was a problem with the car, and then there was the threat of rain, and there was other things, and you have kids stuff going on. And so afterwards, we went over to sidelines together as a staff, and she did get to meet some more of the wives. And
oh, good.
And I know that she's really excited about being involved in that and seeing what that environment's all like. But speaking about, you and I had a little banter going back this week as well, just kidding each other. And when you can do those type of things, and that the other guys it's just about kidding and the camaraderie, and we have a lot of things in common with. We'll say some quote from a movie or a television. Everybody knows what it's from, and we can all laugh. That is and Dirk told me that beforehand. He says, you're going to love this staff. He says some of these guys on my staff are my absolute best friends, and they get along. We all get along real well. And so that makes it easier transition as well. And again, I'm thankful that you allowed me this opportunity to be on this. You gave me the opportunity to say, hey, on those long drives back and forth, listen to my podcast. And I've done that. So glad I could share a little bit of my information with some of your listeners, and they get to know a little bit about me, because they might not only know me from Maumee, and they don't know my background. And I think it's important for those people to know that why I do what I do is for their sons, if they're playing, or this the community itself, because I know how important the game of football is. Because this is what I've said. I'll give you this last one. Your coaches, sometimes we overplay things, and it's high school football. We're not making our living off this. We're not making our, where we pay our bills off of our salaries, and it's not the NFL level and all that sort of thing. But football is important because it's the avenue that brought us all together. Okay, let's not say that football is the most important thing. It's not, but it is that important, because we would not be talking without it. I would not be coaching your kids without it. We would not be together as a team without it. So football brought us all together. So what are we going to do? The fact that we are together right now, and it's not just all about football. And again, it's about those relationships. And at this point, this is the only reason I do this. I absolutely missed the competition and getting kids to rise up and to push them and to just let them know that I respect and appreciate them. And hopefully they have that from me, and we can go back and forth just to make them better, and then better men as they leave the program, and they'll remember something that Coach Gibson told them that's going to maybe make their life a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Marc, thanks for coming on the podcast. It was great to, like I said, we knew a little bit about, but I like these episodes where I learn all about my guest and my friend, just learning new things and maybe new things to make fun of you about and that kind of stuff. So.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. So,
all right. Thanks, Marc.
My friend. I appreciate you. And I'll see you all too soon tomorrow.
Yep. We'll see you.
Get ready for week 1. Go,
Jack. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right,
thanks again to my guest, Marc Gibson, for coming on the podcast. Had a great time talking to him about obviously about football coaching, but finding his route to Perrysburg now. It was interesting hearing all the stops he made and what happened when he was there. And then obviously talking about kids. I love talking about my kids, and now he has grandchildren, so talking about all that kind of stuff. But it was great learning more about the new defensive backs coach here at Perrysburg. And hopefully for our sake, he's there for a while. He's a great coach, great guy to listen to and talk to. So thanks again for him for coming on the podcast. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Help us out there. Just a little button on most of the pod apps, and check out the YouTube page. Just search the Nerdball Podcast. Just hit subscribe there. Even if you don't subscribe to anything on YouTube, you can subscribe to that, and nothing else really happens. I think you get a notification when a new video comes out, possibly. But even then, you don't even have to listen, I guess, if you don't want to. Just hit the subscribe button so I have more subscribers. So we have more subscribers here at the Nerdball Podcast. Thanks for always listening. It's great to run into people saying, "Oh, I listened to this episode or listen to that episode. Oh, I really like this." It's good. It's good feedback. I'm glad people are out there listening to it. So I'm going to continue to do this for all you listeners out there, and for my mental health, because it is fun. I just have a great time talking to people and interviewing people and finding things out. So yeah, that's it. I appreciate you all. As always, thanks to Cuttlefish Graphics, Real JP Multimedia, Big Daddy Graphics, and the Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always helping out the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.